water resource management, sanitation, and conservation. So, the learning objectives are to internalize the importance of water resources to life, acquire clear understanding the tragedy of commons as a contrast to sustainable development, and lastly, to recognize the necessity of water conservation and prevention of water pollution to our various water sources. Increasing pressures from population and economic activities continued to take their toll on the country's coastal waters. While there have been noted improvement in some areas which have been the subject of intense rehabilitation efforts by both government and the private sectors alike, safe water supply and environmental sanitation are two important factors in the prevention of diseases, improvement of living condition, and enhancement of the environment. Without this, people, particularly the poor and disadvantaged, are more prone to infectious diseases such as diarrhea, hepatitis, typhoid, schistosomiasis, and other ailments brought about by contaminated drinking water and poor personal hygiene and environment sanitation. So, safe water supply, ito ay tumutukoy sa access ng water that is clean and free from contaminants, making it safe for drinking, sa paggamit sa pagluluto, and personal hygiene. While the environmental sanitation, ito ay nag-involve sa management of waste and maintenance of hygienic conditions in the environment. So nakapaloob dito yung proper disposal ng garbages, waste management, and ensuring clean living condition to reduce health risk. Next po. So, human settlements, industry, and agriculture have considerable polluted both inland and coastal waters. Domestic sewage still contributes approximately 52% of the pollution loads, while the industry contributes the remaining 48%. This continuing pollution could seriously compromise the country's water resources potential for domestic agriculture, agricultural and industrial uses. So yung one primary reason for the sustained substantial contribution of domestic sewage to pollution is the sheer volume of wastewater generated by households. So each day, millions of homes produce a vast amount of sewage from toilets, sinks, showers, and appliances. The role of the state and the Filipino people to mitigate water pollution is equally important as our adherence to the cause of improving out air quality or the resolve to implement an ecologically sound solid waste management. Thus, a concrete action plan, especially from the academe, is being called for. The role of the academe in this endeavor is essential in effecting the paradigm shift and the further promotion of environmental literacy among the generation that will eventually inherit the earth. Next po. Fresh water is essential for life and has countless uses, yet it is often taken for granted. Human activities are increasingly threatening the quality and availability of this vital resource. In 2003, the United Nations designated the year as the International Year of Fresh Water to raise awareness about the need for better management and protection. So yung fresh water po, ito ay water that has a low concentration of dissolved salt, making it suitable for drinking, irrigation, and various ecological functions. Typically, it contains less than 1,000 milligrams of dissolved salt per liter. So, yung sources po ng fresh water ay kalimitan rivers and streams, lakes and ponds, groundwater, and wetlands. In the Philippines, County receives an average of 1.8 million cubic meter of quality rainwater annually, but only 8% is used for domestic purposes, while nature consumes about 50%. Industry accounts for 23% of water withdrawals, with developed countries using up to 59%. Currently, more than 54% of the world's fresh water is being consumed, and with population growth and increased industrial and agricultural demand, this figure could rise to over 70% by 2025. The challenge lies in meeting the growing water needs sustainability. Next ho. Issues in water resources management. The estimated national water resource potential is 226,430 mcm. 91% comes from surface water and 9% from groundwater. Demand for water is less than one-third of the renewable water available nationally. Yet, in 1995, as national water crisis was declared to address the increasing water resources management challenge, problems include the lack of comprehensive cross-sectoral strategy for development and protection of water resources, fragmented water management, weak law enforcement, and inadequate water resources data on which to base rational planning and development. Next po. Water problem currently affects about 450 million people in 29 countries, primarily due to geographical and climatic factors. As water demand continues to rise, many more regions will face severe shortages, with the UN estimating that by 2025, around 5.5 million people, or two-thirds of the global population, could lack adequate water supply. This crisis is exacerbated by the destruction of natural ecosystems vital for replenishing fresh water. Rivers, lakes, and wetlands are drying up and being converted for agriculture or aquaculture, while areas like Cebu Island have potential for significant water supply issues of availability and pollution hinder access. Globally, despite water covering over 70% of Earth's surface, most is saline and the majority of accessible fresh water is lacked in glaciers or deep groundwater. Only a small fraction is readily available in rivers and lakes, leading to uneven distribution. Rivers like Iceland and Canada have abundant resources, while areas such as the Middle East and North Africa struggle with chronic shortages. So one of the example of water problem in the Philippines is the water supply crisis in Metro Manila. So rapid urbanization, population growth, and inadequate infrastructure have led to frequent shortages and unequal access to clean water. So many residents rely on deep wells or water deliveries while others face interruption in their supply. Additionally, pollution from domestic and industrial sources contaminates available water, further complicating access to safe drinking water. Next po. Groundwater extraction rising. In the Philippines, groundwater production is estimated at about 2,518 million cubic meters per year. However, 65% of this abstraction occurs without the necessary permits. Due to a lack of metering and monitoring, permit holders often exceed their allowed withdrawal by 20 to 60%. Only 6% of monitored users comply with their permit restriction. The increasing use of groundwater combined with declining aquifer recharge rates has resulted in saline intrusion and pollution from domestic sewage, industrial waste, and agricultural chemicals, particularly in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu. So, example of groundwater ulit sa Pilipinas ay yung sitwasyon pa rin sa Metro Manila. So, sa Metro Manila, maraming residente at negosyong umaasa na sa groundwater dahil hindi nagiging sapat yung supply ng tubig na nanggagaling mula sa tangke. So, maraming gumagamit ng mga deep well o mga balon nang walang kaukulang permiso at madalas na silang lumalampas sa tinakdang limitasyon sa pagkuha ng tubig. So, yung labis na pagkuha ng mga residente sa groundwater ay nagdudulot ng pagbaba ng aquifer at nagiging sanhi ng saline intrusion. So, yung aquifer, ito ay isang lugar sa lupa na nag-iimbak ng tubig. Ito ay karaniwang gawa sa mga materyales na madaling tumagos tulad ng buhangin or graba. Mahalaga ito dahil dito nagmumula ang malinis na tubig para sa pag-inom at irigasyon. While yung saline intrusion naman, ito ay nangyayari kapag yung alat mula sa dagat ay pumapasok na sa mga freshwater aquifer. Ito ay kadalasang dulot nga ng labis na pagkuha ng tubig o pagtaas na ng antas ng dagat. Ang ganitong kontaminasyon ay nagiging sanhi na ng hindi magandang kalidad ng tubig para sa pag-inom at pagtatanim. Next po. Watershed management. Watersheds in the Philippines cover about 70% of the country's land area, encompassing 421 river basins, with 18 classified as major. These watersheds range in size from 5,000 to 2.5 million hectares. Many major basins are in critical condition due to overexploitation and mismanagement, leading to soil erosion, surface dross, and ecological imbalances. Although 119 watersheds covering 1.36 million hectares are designated as reservation, most are degraded due to cultivation and settlement pressures. So, yung example naman po ng watershed ay makikita natin sa Lamesa Watershed in Metro Manila, Philippines. So, yung area na yon ay crucial for the city's water supply as it feeds into the Lamesa Dam, which provides drinking water to millions of residents. Next po. Coastal and marine resources. The Philippines has marine territorial waters spanning approximately 2.2 million square kilometers, which includes an exclusive economic zone of 1.9 million square kilometers and 267,000 square kilometers of coastal waters. Around 55% of the population lives in about 10,000 coastal barangays and urban centers. The coral reef, seagrass beds, and mangroves in this water support 80% of all commercial fish and shellfish species. So, yung example naman po ng coastal and marine resources sa Philippines ay yung biodiversity found in the Coral Triangle, which it includes areas like Tubataha Reef Natural Park, So yung region na yon ay kilala sa pagiging vibrant coral reef and wide variety of marine life, including fish, sea turtles, and other marine organisms. Next po. Coral reef in poor condition. The Philippines boasts one of the world's largest coral reef areas, covering about 27,000 square kilometers, where nearly one-third of all fish species live. Coral reefs are vital for the country, supporting almost 55% of fish consumed and contributing 10 to 15% to marine fisheries production. However, only 4.3% of the reef are in excellent condition, largely due to watershed degradation. Globally, about half of major rivers are severely polluted, largely from agricultural runoff and domestic waste, with industrial discharges causing significant damage. Consequently, one-fifth of the world's freshwater fish species are threatened, and half of global wetlands have been lost in the last 50 years. Poor water and quality impacts human health severely, with up to 2.3 billion people affected by water-related diseases, leading to over 5 million deaths annually, mostly among children in poorer countries due to inadequate safe water and sanitation. So, yung common reason naman po for coral reef being in poor condition ay dahil sa climate change. Yung rising sea temperatures lead to coral bleaching, while where corals lose their algae and nutrients. The other thing po is yung pollution. Runoff from land activities introduces harmful substances, sediments, and excess nutrients that can smother corals and promote algal blooms. And the other thing din po is yung overfishing. An unsustainable fishing practice deplete key species that help maintain the balance of the reef ecosystem, such as herbivorous fish, and also the coastal development. Yung urbanization and construction can damage reef habitats, increase sedimentation, and water quality. Next po. Water demand growing rapidly. Nationwide, water demand in the Philippines is projected to rise from 43,000 million cubic meters per year in 2000 to 88,400 mcm by 2025. In Metro Manila, demand increased over 200% from 1981 to 1997, reaching 4,100 million liters per day, with expectations to grow to 5,000 MLD by 2001. However, in 1996, the supply was only 2,500 MLD against a demand of 3,400 MLD. Similarly, the Metro Cebu Water District met only 36% of total demand in 1995, and Baguio City provided water to 80% of connection for just 4 hours 3 times a week. This supply-demand gap is primarily due to insufficient infrastructure. So, yung water demand naman po, ang clear example naman po nito ay yung sa India, particularly in urban areas like Delhi. So, yung as population continues to surge, reaching over 20 million, the demand for water has skyrocketed. So, yung factors naman po contributing to growing demand ay yung population growth, urbanization, agricultural expansion, at industrial growth. Next po. Agriculture's use dominates. Agriculture in the Philippines account for 86% of water use, the irrigation being the largest consumer at 72.6% of total water. The fishery sector uses 27% while livestock and poultry account for less than 0.5%. Irrigation systems cover about 15 million hectares or 48% of irrigable land, producing 70% of the country's rice. Groundwater contributes only 1.2% to irrigation. Next po. Access to water supply varies. As of 1995, 72% of Filipino were served by public water system with 68% in urban areas and 75% in rural areas. By May by May 1, 2000, the population reached approximately 76.5 million, a growth of 11.5% from 1995, with an annual growth rate of 2.36%. The southern Tagalog region is the most populated, while the national capital region is most densely populated, with 15,617 people per square kilometer, compared to the national average of 225. The economy is heavily agricultural, employing about 40% of the workforce, with major products including rice, corn, and fruits. There are around 15,000 manufacturing firms in the country, primarily in Metro Manila, focusing on textile, pharmaceuticals, food processing, and electronics. So, next po. So, to discuss the sources of water pollution, here is Shanil Barha.
The sources of water pollution. Next. Water pollutants generally come from the five sources. These are domestic sewage, industrial wastewater, agricultural runoff, stormwater runoff, and naturally occurring sources. Next. These water pollutants can either be point or non-point sources. Point source pollution is defined as those entering the environment from a fixed source. Water pollutants of point sources are more manageable because these are normally concentrated, limited to a few points, and can be treated prior to discharge. Non-point sources pollution are those which continuously deposit extraneous materials into water sources from a widely spread area. So, to simplify this, point source pollution is pollution that comes from one specific place, like a pipe or a factory. Point source pollution occurs in a single location, while non-point source pollution comes from many places, not just one. It happens when rainwater washes dirt and chemicals into rivers and lakes, making it harder to control than point source pollution. Next po. Next slide. Domestic sewage is defined as wastewater discharged from residential, commercial, institutional, recreational, and industrial facilities, where waste are generated through the use of dining facilities, shower rooms, and toilets. Commercial sources are hotels, hospitals, and schools. Sewage from industrial sources of wastewater because such facilities employ large number of employees. So, a real life example of domestic sewage can be observed in urban areas like Manila, particularly sa Manila Bay. Many households lack proper sanitation facilities na naglilid sa untreated sewage na direktang lumalabas sa mga daluyan ng tubig. The effect of this problem is widespread that results in increase in diseases such as cholera and diarrhea, as well as the degradation of marine life sa Manila Bay. So next po. Next slide po. Industrial wastewater. It is a principal example of a point. Ne, uh, Doon po sa isang slide sa industrial wastewater. Industrial wastewater. It is a principal example of a point source is discharged by industries after water has been utilized in production processes. Industries such as canneries, chemical plants, food and beverage plants, pulp and paper factories, and textile mills often discharge industrial wastewater laden predominantly with organic load as well as chemicals and solids. So factories in Calabarzon and Central Luzon that manufactures textiles and food processing often discharge untreated or inadequately treated wastewater in nearby rivers and bodies of water. In Laguna de Bay, there are many industries that have been reported to contribute pollution, leading to the contamination of water sources and harming aquatic ecosystems. It contains heavy metals, chemicals, and other pollutants that impacts public health and livelihood, especially to those communities reliant on fishing and agriculture. Next slide po. Next slide. Sa agricultural runoff. So, agricultural runoff is an example of an from farms, which often carries fecal materials, soil particles, fertilizers, phosphates and nitrates, and pesticides. Agricultural runoff is a major concern in our country, especially in areas with intensive farming, such as Central Luzon region. For example, in the rice producing regions of Nueva Ecija and Pampanga, heavy rainfall can wash away excess fertilizers and chemicals from fields to waterways. This can result to health risk to communities relying on these water sources for drinking and irrigation. Next po. Next slide po. Stormwater runoff is an example of a non-point source. Stormwater runoff results from rainfall and may cause turbidity and contamination of receiving water bodies. So, stormwater runoff in our country is a significant issue. During heavy rainfall, excess water flows over roads, pavements, buildings, and houses, picking up pollutants like oils, heavy metals, and other debris along the way. The stormwater runoff can be prevented only if the proper authorities improve the drainage system, flood control. Next slide. Naturally occurring sources. The main water pollutants include bacteria, viruses, parasites, fertilizers, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, nitrates, phosphates, plastics, fecal waste, and even radioactive substances. These substances do not always change the color of the water, meaning that they are often invisible pollutants. So, even if sa mga natural sources ng water natin is they may be dangerous because hindi lahat ng nakikita natin kahit clear water siya na mukhang malinis, it can be harmful to us. So, next slide. Surface water quality issues and concerns. Next slide. Untreated domestic sewage, a leading contributor to water pollution. While it is true that many industrial discharges are also to blame for water quality deterioration, several studies show that domestic sewage is the biggest water pollution problem the country is facing today. Industrial wastewater pollution. Pollution from industrial wastewater is another major contributor to surface water pollution. This type of wastewater comes mainly from manufacturing processes. Next. Threats from non-point pollution sources. Non-point sources, those contribute extraneous materials into water courses from an extensively wide area, thus making it much harder to control. Examples of non-point sources are agricultural and forest runoff and urban stormwater runoff, as said earlier. Inefficient solid waste management. A serious concern from inefficient solid waste management is its contribution to water quality deterioration. The indiscriminate dumping of solid waste, particularly in urban areas, creates aesthetic, nuisance, and health problems, including clogging of already inadequate drainage systems, creating stagnant water for insect breeding and flooding during rainy seasons. So, yan po is yung mga pagtatapon ng mga like yung mga plastic sa kung saan-saan na lang na nagka-clog ating mga sa ating mga drainage system, gano'n po. Next po. Causes and mechanisms of water sources degradation. Degradation of water resources refers to degradation of quantity of water as well as quality of water. The sources could be atmospheric, rain, water sources, surface water, or groundwater. The following are some causes and mechanism of water sources degradation. Logging of forest. Logging of forest can disrupt water cycle by trapping and releasing water. Their removal can alter local precipitation patterns and reduce groundwater recharge. Kaingin/burn farming. Kaingin farming, also known as slash and burn agriculture, is a traditional practice primarily used in tropical regions. It involves clearing forested land by cutting down trees and burning the vegetation to prepare the soil for farming. Deforestation alters the natural water cycle, potentially reducing groundwater recharge and altering stream flows, which can affect mining activities. Mining can change the natural landscape, affecting the flow of rivers and streams. This can lead to flooding or reduced water availability downstream. Transportation routes. So, rain can wash oils and chemicals from roads into rivers and lakes, contaminating the water. Accidental leaks or spills of chemicals. Oil spills or chemical spills can contaminate rivers, lakes, and oceans. It can harm aquatic life and disrupt ecosystems. Cattle grazing, piggery, and poultry farming. Uh, cattle grazing, piggery, poultry farming, the nutrients or sediments of the poultry farming or the piggery farming can go direct to the water sources and can contaminate the water sources. Pesticide and fertilizers from agricultural lands, as said earlier, can go to the water stream and go there, go, go, and can contaminate our water to the rivers, lakes, and oceans. Human settlements and sewage disposal systems. Garbage open dump site and sanitary landfills, underground storage tanks, salinity intrusion into coastal aquifers, recreation in stream and lakes areas, river quarrying of gravel and sand. So this can all be prevented by us humans. So the water pollution can not happen. Water source degradation, it recognizes causes like pollution, overuse. It helps us understand how to combat it. Next po.
Hello po, baka nagka-technical problem lang? Or tapos na po ba or what?
Nawala daw po signal niya. Ako na lang po magtutuloy.
Okay, thank you.
So, countermeasures to be done for maintaining good water quality. Next slide po. So, to ensure availability and sustainability of fresh water, the following countermeasures need to be instituted. So, first, water conservation at home, in schools, offices, and other places. Increasing the efficiency of irrigation system, safeguarding all wetlands from destructive system, development of crop varieties that need less water or drought resistant crops, large scale reforestation of the new dead watershed, cleaner production in industries, recycling wastewater, and good housekeeping, provision of clean water for underdeveloped localities, and enactment of appropriate laws. So, that's all po. Isasend na lang po namin yung activity namin sa GC. Thank you po.
At thank you po sa presenters ng lesson 17 if I'm right.